story about it, and I never heard no more about it. So each Christmas, he worked at the White House. Then he got transferred to the White House, and each Christmas, I'd take him one of them big fruit baskets down to the White House. Yep, for many a year, and give him the fruit basket, and he was happy. Yeah, that's the way it worked.
Now, we're talking about a fruit basket that was to an elderly woman or somebody.
It didn't make no difference. I know it was to a white person. So I mean, I'm eating big, pretty fruit baskets. So you imagine 50 years ago, a fruit basket that was $30 or $40. It was huge. You know, nuts. Oh, no, the nuts, the jelly, and and those small. Oh yeah. Oh yeah, it was.
And you heard, but the chief called you in.
He called me in, yeah.
And nothing else came out of it.
Nothing else came out of it. And honestly, I kept saying afterwards, if I had lost my face, I think I would have jumped off the 14th Street Bridge. I honestly believe, because you know I needed the job.
Right.
Because I did. The bottom line was making the dollar bill. So that's how that's how you had to make it. In fact, at that time, you had a lot of white cab drivers. There was no such thing as a foreign cab driver in the 50s, 60s, and 70s. Nowhere in the country. They did start here in the last 15 to 20 years all over the country, where you had the foreign cab drivers.
Right.
And but here, most of the guys worked for the government, and they drove cab part-time, because the government jobs. Oh, I had a guy in my lodge at finished college. He was a lawyer, and he had a messenger's job. They wouldn't give you no job. The white folks wouldn't give him no job, and everybody was making less than $10,000 a year. Can you imagine, less than $10,000 a year? And you make that in a month. Yeah, you make that in less than a month. So that's what happened. Of course, by the same token, though, it's all relative. You know, we paid I don't know, $15,000, $16,000, $17,000 for this house. At the end of the month, you were broke. You know, you didn't have no money, and you, just like you now, you paid $500,000 or $600,000 for your house. You're making $100,000 a month, $100,000 a year, and at the end of the month you broke too. So it's all relative. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So were there many black cab drivers then?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. It was
back then.
Back then it was 75%, 80% were black cab drivers.
Here in
DC.
In DC,
yeah. Yeah, 75%.
They were hustling.
Oh yeah, they were, and these were all people that worked for the government.
That was their second job.
That was the second job. It was 80% of them, and maybe 60% of them were working part time, and the other 20% was working full time. You know, 20% of the blacks. And some of the guys, I see some guys. There's still a handful out there now that I knew. Well, they started later than I did, but 5, 6, 7 years later.
Because you're talking 60 years.
60 years, that's right.
That's a long time.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the way it went. And we bought this house in 58. In 1974, we paid for it. Paid for the house. So we paid no rent since 1974. And that's when I bought that first Mercedes.
Right, that coupe, the 280 coupe.
Yeah, and the people, they took it down to the post office, and the people, they just died. They couldn't understand. Like I was telling Lydia, they couldn't understand how I could afford. We're all working there together, and I think I paid $15,000 for the car. And couldn't understand. But see, the bottom line was the money that they were paying for a house note. I was using the same money paying for a car note because I didn't have no house note.
Right.
Didn't have no house note. So that's how we got over paying for the house in '74 and not moving, not going. And then after that, in the '80s, that's when the people started. See, because when we first moved here, this was all white. In fact, Washington was in the '50s was probably 60, 70, 80% white.
What
All
happened
these
then?
neighborhoods, they moved. That's when it all started. Right after World War II is when they started building houses in the suburbs.
Like in Maryland and Virginia.
In Maryland, Virginia. But this happened all over the country. California was the same way.
In the suburbs.
In the suburbs.
Right.
Because it was, all you had was the little stores. And then when they moved to the suburbs, then the white folks moved to the suburbs and sold their houses. And then the real estate man would come by and say, look, you better sell your house because some black people are gonna move next door. And in fact, on Capitol Hill, all those places down there was nothing but black. It was white up until right around the rise time. That's when things started changing in the late '60s.
Really?
Yeah, and that was, of course, again, that was all over the country.
Right.
Yeah, it wasn't just local here. So,
but you're like 70% black now, right? In Washington D.C.
No, it's returned. It's back again. So now it's about maybe 40% black, and you put another 15 or 20% Asian and Mexicans.
So that much less black? Because wasn't it 70% at one time?
Yeah, oh yeah. Because the blacks.
So now they're coming back and taking the property and
they've come back. In fact, people right across the street. In this neighborhood, there's 10 white families in this neighborhood now.
And it was none.
It was none. It was unheard of. And this was all white. This was all white in the '50s.
So it's now reversing back.
Now it's reversing back. Yeah.
Because Washington D.C. is a wonderful place for them to take charge of.
And then that's exactly what happened. In fact, you go downtown, they build all these condominiums and things.
Right.
These new and see, the average black person can't afford it. But you're talking about 2 or 3 or 400. Well, you're talking about $2,000 a month rent.
That's what you're going across the country.
Yeah,
even before I left Pittsburgh, they were doing that. They actually closed down the projects that were right.
Yeah, right up on the hill. That's exactly right. Up in the hill district, all that's gone.
I heard the Hill District is done. It's just,
yeah.
It used to be all.
Yeah, and again, what you saw in the Hill District, it's the same way all over the country.
They're doing it in Atlanta.
Yeah. Atlanta the same way. The white folks moved to the suburbs, Stone Mountain, places like that. Yeah. But now it's reversing because the people are getting tired, just like your daughter. See, your daughter's unbelievable. She spends 2 to 3 hours on the road every day. Well, the white folks are getting tired of that now.
So now they're just coming back in and taking over those properties in the city because it's a commute issue.
Right, because just like we're in Fikesburg, I could drive to work in 5 minutes and park. It was never no congestion. 10 minutes I'm at work. And park and go on to work, in 10 minutes I'm back home. Where the white folks for the last 20, 25, 30 years, they would drive commuting to an hour and a half to an hour and 45 minutes going and coming. So you're talking about 3 hours a day.
Now they want the property.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, that's been the change. Yeah. That's been the change. And when Marion Barry, white folks, everybody don't like him. Uh, they had nothing but white people working downtown. And when he came in, shoot, he hired all the blacks. But the thing about it is that 60-70% of them weren't qualified to do the job.
Right.
So as a result, it made him look bad. But he's done some good things.
Right.
As far as the main thing, as far as our taxes is concerned, we have, of course, most cities now have the homestead thing, wherein your taxes are cut in half. But now he gave us a break. He says anybody over 65 years old, you can cut that in half. So now we only pay $700-800 a year for real estate tax, wherein people in Maryland are paying $7,000 or $8,000.
Right.
Yeah. So so it's worked. And but blacks had it. It was tough. It was tough 40, 50 years ago. I remember when we was Oscar and I was coming back from California. I think that's the time I was supposed to go into the Army. And a guy drove up alongside of us and spit on the car. There ain't nothing you can do but keep going, right?
Right.
Yeah. And that's about the closest encounter that I've ever come with white folks. That particular incident that I can recall or remember right now. But as far as jobs are concerned, you couldn't. There's no such thing. Like I was telling you about the warehouse job I had. Blacks couldn't get checkers jobs. Where you use the pencil checking stuff coming in. You couldn't get that job, and that's a job I was doing. I was telling you about the compress where I worked with the black folks. I was
qualified to do it.
I done that, then went from there to the foreman's job because the other blacks couldn't do it. So, but even in California, after the war, then the Mexicans, there was a lot of Mexicans in California. They got the bulk of the jobs on the longshore. And the whites couldn't. The blacks couldn't get no jobs. Police jobs, firemen's jobs. Those were all white jobs. In fact, when I was in California, I don't think I ever remember seeing a black truck driver. Drive these big 18-wheelers, Lydia. It was all white jobs.